Xin chào các bạn, chào mừng tất cả các bạn đã đến với chương trình Lịch sử hào hùng, một chương trình được đặc biệt tạo ra bởi iKSIELTS giúp cho việc luyện tập nghe tiếng Anh trở nên thú vị hơn qua những chủ đề lịch sử. Để luyện tập tốt hơn, hãy cùng quét mã bài tập ở góc phải màn hình hoặc click vào phần mô tả để luyện tập tốt nhất nhé. Ok, bắt đầu thôi!
There was a road without the sound of gunfire, bombs, or bullets. It left no footprints, silently and quietly operating until the South was completely liberated. Not many people knew about this road, and even today, it is rarely mentioned. This was the monetary road during the war. How did it operate so secretly? Right after peace was established in the North in 1954, the National Bank of Vietnam began dealing with money matters for the South, mainly with the currency issued by the Saigon government. Saigon was a free market at that time, with abundant goods, so purchasing anything was easy, requiring only one thing: money. To obtain this currency, the Foreign Exchange Management Department had to use state funds to exchange for dollars in Hong Kong, then transfer them back to Vietnam, and finally into the South via the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Our people in the South has the task of receiving the money and converting it into Saigon currency to buy food, weapons, medicine, and ammunition for the battlefields. The challenge was that obtaining the money was difficult, but converting it into Saigon currency was even harder, because each year we transfer millions of dollars from the North. Now, how to process this money without being exposed? Carrying a whole bag of money to exchange would undoubtedly raise suspicion, because it was unusual for someone to suddenly have hundreds of thousands of dollars without a clear source. Therefore, the financial officers thought of splitting the money and taking it to the gold shop. Back then, there were hundreds of gold shops throughout Saigon, in the Chợ Lớn and Gia Đình areas. So visiting 4 shops a day and exchanging $500 at each shop worked. This rotation took around 15 days, and on the 16th day, it started again, making it impossible for the enemy to recognize and detect. However, this method could not last long because the expenditure was very slow, by which time our troops would have starved before being shot. Therefore, our officer had to think of another method, relying on the black market exchange rate. In the early 1960s, $1 could buy 140 Saigon dongs officially, while on the black market, it could buy 190 Saigon dongs. This led to the idea of posing as overseas Vietnamese returning home, speaking fluent English, and exchanging money on the black market. It was not only more profitable, but also less risky, as both parties wanted to avoid exposure. However, this method had 2 major issues. Firstly, one could only exchange large sums once or twice a year, as it was not common for overseas Vietnamese to return home frequently and spend thousands of dollars. Although this method was more efficient than using gold shops, it was still not sufficient to meet the growing revolutionary needs. Secondly, transporting money by car from the north to the south along the Ho Chi Minh trails was a significant problem due to the heavy US bombing. No matter how well the money was concealed, it was still burned. The external containers might remain intact, but the money inside would be ruined by the heat. Thus, our officers came up with a brilliant plan to convert the money within Saigon without the enemy's knowledge. This involved collaborating with wealthy merchants. The method was that the merchants would withdraw Saigon money to give to us, and we would pay them in dollars. But carrying millions of dollars around Saigon to exchange was not feasible. If caught, we would lose both money and people, and the entire network would be exposed. Therefore, the officer decided to exchange the dollar at black market rate. but the merchants had to hand over the money first. Once we received the money, we would give them a check. They could take the check to a bank in Hong Kong to get the dollars. The question was how to keep the process secret, as exposure of a check could reveal the entire operation. The solution was that the check was not a typical bank check, but a simple page from a wall calendar, with the recipient's information and the amount encoded as numbers. It looked like a phone number and was meaningless to anyone who might capture it, thinking it was just scrap paper. Why did the merchants accept such transactions? Clearly, there were no legal documents. If we disappeared, they had no one to sue. They had doubts, but those we chose to deal with were sympathetic to the revolution. Moreover, we exchanged money at black market rates, so they profited. Trust was built gradually, not through a single large transaction, but through many smaller ones. Once trust was established, our operation ran smoothly. However, this was only a way to obtain Saigon money, which was not all we needed. We also needed Thai baht, Lao kip, and especially Cambodian riel to purchase essential goods such as food, clothing, medicines, and medicals from our neighbors. How did we obtain Cambodian riels and transport goods back to Vietnam without detection? The answer will be in the next episode of Glorious History. Stay tuned!
Chương trình xin được phép tạm dừng tại đây. Đừng quên ấn like và subscribe nhé!